Welcome all. Today we are in week 2, section 2 of Concept of Morality and Moral Education. In this week, which is section 2, we will be discussing theory of morality and the form of morality. Let us first discuss theory of morality. In this particular theory of morality, we will be discussing the objective theory of good. What is this objective theory of good? According to this theory, the base of morality is fixed and objective. It is a view that leads to the notion that a morally educated person is the one who has recognized the truth of some particular moral values, and he or she acts on them irrespective of conditions and situations. Such values can be human virtues like truth, non-violence, not deceiving others, to be objective, to be impartial, respecting elders, etc. So these are the virtues which a person has recognized to be the truth, and a morally educated person will have these virtues irrespective of any conditions or situations. And these human virtues are like truth, non-violence, not deceiving others, honesty, to be objective, to be impartial, and also to respect the elders. The purpose of education according to such a theory of objective theory of good, because we have been discussing the objective theory of good. So according to the objective theory of good, the purpose of education would be to impart instruction with a view to instill these values in pupils. But such a view of morality would obviously be authoritarian and hence not much different from religious morality. Second, can any of such virtues be desirable and hence good under all circumstances? We have already maintained that such virtues are not necessarily always desirable under all conditions. There are other reasons also why we should not nurture children in accordance with the objective theory of morality. One such reason is grounded in man's freedom. Human beings' freedom of thought, right to her own beliefs cannot be denied. The concept of moral freedom entails notion of human being as an active agent, responsible for his or her own destiny and for his own action and behavior. Under such a concept of autonomy, if I have a right to act freely or to protect my freedom for the same reasons, I have no right to encroach upon similar freedom of others. And this forms the basis of morality, which is the essence of equity or justice. It implies that man's values must be his own. One loses one's freedom insofar as one acts in accordance with the values that are imposed from without. So there is this concept of autonomy, of freedom, freedom to choose, freedom to act freely, because when you do not act freely, then it means you are being forced, you are coerced to do something which is not your own freedom of choice. So when we talk about autonomy, when we talk about man's freedom, human beings have the right to act freely, to protect their freedom, and also at the same time there is the freedom of the others. So we have the freedom to do our own will, to act freely, but then we should not encroach upon similar freedom of others. So when we talk about this particular concept of autonomy, it means that yes, you have the right to exercise your freedom, your rights, but then you do not encroach upon the freedom of others. It is clear, therefore, that our question, what is morality, is a response to the constantly changing demands of the society suited to man as a free and autonomous being. We must recognize this as a demand for the autonomy of the individuals and a respect for the freedom and autonomy of others. So, when we talk about morality, when we talk about what is right and wrong, what you do should not be a deterrent for the others. What you do should not be harmful for others. So when you respect others, it is also another form of morality, that is also a way of respecting the rights of others. If we believe that we should live in a society comprising of free and autonomous individuals, we also thereby feel an increased need for moral education, a kind of education that must enable students to do their own moral thinking, rather than encouraging them to conform to externally imposed moral codes. So when we talk about freedom, when we talk about autonomous individuals, when we talk about individuals' freedom to exercise their rights, we should also enable students to do their own moral thinking rather than impose upon them that these are the moral codes to which you should stick to. We should not strictly demand of them. You should not strictly demand them to strictly adhere to moral codes. You should give them space. You should enable them to have their own moral thinking. Let us now talk about language of morals. Philosophers and other thinkers in the field of ethics have been trying to answer the most fundamental question, the question of what is highest good. That is the summum bonum, which may be termed as good in itself, or the determining principle in ethical system. As a matter of fact, the different theories in ethics have come up in the manner this question has been answered. For example, according to objectivists, there are certain things, actions which are good in themselves. On the other hand, the idealist thinkers following this notion assign intrinsic values to concepts like truth, goodness and beauty. According to the idealist thinkers, these values are absolute and hence can be unconditionally followed. On the other hand, the subjectivists, rejecting the objective theory of values, assert that nothing in this world is good without conditions. So this is the difference. When we talk about the idealists, according to them, there are certain values which are absolute. For example, respecting the others, respecting the elders. It is this particular value which can be unconditionally followed by all members of the society, because respecting the others, respecting the elders especially, is a virtue, is a value which can be followed by all members irrespective of which society they live in. On the other hand, the subjectivists, rejecting the objective theory of values, according to them, they say that in this world there is nothing good without conditions, which means that when you do certain things, you do not do it unconditionally, but you do it because there are certain conditions attached to it. So this is the difference between the idealist and the subjectivist. Then we move on to what we call good, which is not the quality of the object, situation or action, but rather a subjective perception of the viewer. Something good for me may be bad for others. It may be good in a particular situation or at a particular time, but bad in other situation or at other times. So when we are talking about the subjectivists, what they say is, what we call good is not a quality of the object, situation or action, but rather a subjective perception of the viewer. Previously I talked about what the subjectives say. They say that whatever good you do because there are certain conditions attached to it. And however, something good for me may not be good for others, it may be bad for others. It may be good in a particular situation or at a particular time, but bad in other situation or at other times. So according to subjectivists, there is no moral education ultimate or absolute good. On the other hand, the idealists say that there are values which are absolute and unconditionally followed, and the subjectivists beg to differ. Then we'll move on to what the utilitarian think. The utilitarian, taking a slightly different view from the subjectivist, holds that the right or good act is the one which will probably produce the greatest amount of happiness in the world at large. For them, it is happiness that is good in itself. For existentialist thinkers, freedom and autonomy of the will constitute inherent goodness. Any action or situation is good to the extent that it is directly or indirectly promotes or is likely to promote freedom and autonomy of the individuals. Utilitarians say that right or good act is the one which will probably produce the greatest amount of happiness in the world at large. The subjectivists, they say that there are values, you perform certain values, you perform something good because there are conditions attached to it, while the idealists say that there are certain values which are absolute and which can be unconditionally followed. Now, the basic question arises, that is whether freedom, autonomy, pleasure, happiness, truth, beauty or goodness, etc. are good always under all conditions. Let me repeat, the basic question that is asked is whether freedom, autonomy, pleasure, happiness, truth, beauty or goodness are good always under all conditions. A little reflection would reveal that no such thing is good unconditionally. According to Kant, the great philosopher, he is one of the greatest philosophers, he has critically examined all such theories of good stated, and he stated in one of his categorical imperatives that nothing in this world or out of it is good without conditions except the goodwill. For Kant, therefore, goodwill is the ultimate good. Let me repeat. What he says is nothing in this world, according to Kant, a famous philosopher, he says, nothing in this world or out of it is good without conditions except the goodwill. For Kant, therefore, goodwill is the ultimate good. So Kant says that when you do something good, that is out of goodwill, without any conditions, then that is the ultimate good, because he says that in this world and out of this world, when you do certain things with something good other than goodwill, it will always have conditions. So if you do something out of your own goodwill without any conditions, then it is the ultimate good. Now let me move on to what is the form of morality. Some philosophers, especially the positivists, hold that reasonableness or rationality of behavior constitutes the form of moral discourse or moral action. Accordingly, no behavior in a given circumstance can be termed as good if it is not rational or reasonable in that circumstance, even though it is in accordance with the highest virtue that is conceivable. So, the positivists say that if your behavior in a certain situation, in a given circumstances, can be termed good if it is rational, it is reasonable. So, if your action is under any given situation or circumstances, if your action is reasonable, it is rational, then it is what you call a good moral behavior, or it is a good moral action, because there is certain kind of rationality in your behavior. So this is what the positivists believe, that when you have certain reasonable behavior, when you have rationality of behavior that constitutes what is called moral action. So when you have rationality behind your action, then that can be termed as good. Conversely, any behavior or action that is rational in given circumstances effected for the sake of attaining a bigger human cause or end, even though what we call human vice like telling a lie are used as means to the end, it will be decidedly good. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have to tell a lie to save the lives of others. So this is an action that is rational in a given situation, that is because you have to save the lives of others by telling a lie, then this is being used as means to an end that will be, so this can be called decidedly good because you have a rationality behind it. You are telling a lie because you have to save the lives of others, and this is a means to an end, so that can be called decidedly a good behavior. So if the end is worthwhile or worthy to be pursued, the means do not matter much. It is on the basis of such reasonableness that one can justify why Sri Ram in Ramayana or Sri Krishna in Mahabharata had to adopt somewhat wrongful means, because the worthwhile end would have been jeopardized and much evil would have been generated. So it is the reasonableness of an action, its form, and not the action per se, its content, that determines or determines the moral worth of an action. So you have Sri Ram in Ramayana or Sri Krishna in Mahabharata who would adopt certain measures for the common good of all, because the end, otherwise the end would have jeopardized and it would bring sadness, it would bring so much evil to members of the society. A lot of evil would have been generated. So if the end is worthwhile or worthy to be pursued, the means do not matter much. So there are certain actions, there are certain ways and behavior which you perform because you want to attain the common good of all. So when we talk about this particular section which we have discussed, we have talked about the objective theory of good, where we say that according to this theory, they say that the base of morality is fixed and objective, and this is a view that leads us to the notion that a morally educated person is the one who has recognized the truth of some particular values and he or she acts on them irrespective of conditions or situations. And such values would be telling the truth, being honest, non-violence, not deceiving others, and to be objective and to be impartial and to respect elders. So according to the objective theory of good, there are certain morality which the base of morality is fixed and objective, and these moral actions and moral values is the truth for a morally educated person, and these are the values which are practiced by a morally educated person irrespective of a given situation or situations. Then we also talked about the various thinkers who talked about morality. We have said that there are certain philosophers like the idealists who believe that concepts like, there is according to them concepts, values like truth, goodness and beauty is absolute, and these are values which have to be unconditionally followed. On the other hand, differing from the idealist thinkers, the subjectivists, they say that nothing in this world is without nothing in this world in terms of doing good. If you have to do good, there is certain conditions attached to why you want to do certain good. So this is what the subjectivists say. And When we talk about the utilitarian, what do the utilitarian thinkers say? They differ a bit from the subjectivists. They say that when you do a certain act, when you perform a certain good act, it is to produce the greatest amount of happiness for the world at large. So, according to them, happiness is good in itself. And what the existentialist thinkers say, we have discussed about the idealist thinkers, we have discussed about the subjectivist thinkers, we have discussed about the utilitarian thinkers. What do the existentialist thinkers say? They say that freedom and autonomy of the will constitute inherent goodness, and they say that any action or situation is good to the extent that it directly or indirectly promotes freedom and autonomy of the individual. And we have the famous philosopher Immanuel Kant, who say that nothing in this world or out of it is good without condition except the goodwill. And for Kant, one does goodwill, which means that he is doing certain acts, certain good action, moral action without conditions, then this goodwill without any condition is the ultimate good. So in this section, this is week 2, section 2, we have discussed what is language of morals. We have discussed theory of morality. So in the next section, we are still going to continue week 2, section 3. We will go further in section 3. For today's section, we have covered the objective theory of good. We have also covered what is called language of morals and the form of morality. Thank you so much.